The wind howled across the frozen trees, carrying snowflakes like tiny knives. It was the kind of night where even wolves stayed close to their dens. In the middle of nowhere, far from towns or cities, stood a small wooden cabin. A man named Tom sat near a crackling fire, sipping hot broth from a metal mug. He lived alone, by choice. Tom was not young, but not too old either. His beard was thick and had begun to turn gray. His hands were rough from years of hard work. Once, long ago, he had served in the defense forces. Now, he lived a quiet life in the cold north, where no one came unless they were lost or hiding. He leaned back in his chair, listening to the wind outside. Snowstorm, he thought. It'll last through the night. He added another log to the fire and pulled a blanket over his legs. Then he heard a sound. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but then it came again, a soft thump, like someone had fallen. Then a weaker sound like a cry, but not quite human. Tom stood up slowly, frowning. He walked to the door, grabbed his thick coat from the hook, and opened it. Cold air rushed in, and snow blew against his face. He squinted into the night. At first he saw nothing. It was just trees and snow. But then, near the edge of the clearing, something moved, stepped out, boots crunching against the ice. He walked carefully, holding a small light in his hand. As he got closer, his eyes widened. There, lying in the snow, was a woman, or something close to one. Her skin was pale, blue, her hair silver and short. She wore strange clothes, thin and torn, clearly not meant for this weather. Next to her, curled into her side, was a small child, no older than 4 or 5. The child had the same pale skin and dark eyes. Both were shivering. The woman opened her eyes, struggling to speak. "Please help." "What?" Tom didn't hesitate. He lifted the child into his coat with one arm and then bent to pick up the woman. She was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. Back in the cabin, he placed the child on his bed and the woman near the fire. He wrapped them both in blankets, checked their hands and faces for frostbite, and brought warm water in a cup. The child drank eagerly. The woman, weak, held the cup with shaking hands. Tom sat on a stool, watching them carefully. "Not from around here," he said quietly. The woman looked up. Her eyes were large and dark like glass. "We walked far. The ship broke many days ago. Others gone. Just us." Tom's heart sank. "You came from a crash?" She nodded slowly. He had heard stories, rumors, really, that some alien crafts had been falling near Earth's outer zones. Most were caught by military teams before anyone saw. But now he had 2 survivors in his home. The woman looked at him, her voice soft and strange. "I don't want to cause harm. I only ask if we can stay, just for warmth." Tom crossed his arms. "I don't have much here. Food is limited. I live alone for a reason." The child stared at him from the bed, eyes wide, hugging a small pouch like it was a toy. The woman bowed her head. "If I warm your bed, will you let us stay?" Tom blinked, surprised. She raised her hand quickly, not in a wrong way. "My culture, we offer warmth, comfort to ask for safety. We mean nothing more." Tom shook his head. "You don't have to offer anything, not like that. Just rest. You're both freezing." The woman gave a faint smile. "You are kind. Many were not." Tom stood and walked to a cupboard. He brought out dried meat and hard bread, softened it in warm water, and handed it to her. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Nira." "My daughter is Luma. I'm Tom," he said. "This is my place. You can stay here tonight. After that, we'll see." Nira nodded. "Thank you, Tom." The fire crackled between them. Luma had already fallen asleep, curled up under the blanket, safe and warm. Nira leaned back against the chair, eyes closing. For the first time in days, her breathing slowed. Tom watched her for a while. She didn't look dangerous. She looked tired, scared, and lost. Maybe he was crazy for letting them stay. Maybe someone would come looking. But in that moment, All he saw was a mother trying to keep her child alive. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, the fire glowed brighter, and though Tom didn't know it yet, that night, the night a poor alien mother asked for warmth, was the beginning of something much bigger. Morning came quietly. Snow still covered the world outside, soft and white like a thick blanket. Trees stood silent, branches heavy with frost. The sun had not yet climbed high, but a pale light shone through the cabin window. Tom was already awake. He stood by the window sipping hot tea, eyes watching the still forest. His thoughts were far away, but he kept glancing back at the two. Shapes near the fire, Nira and her daughter Luma, were still sleeping. Wrapped in heavy blankets, they looked peaceful now. The little one had turned in her sleep and curled up like a kitten. Nira's hand rested protectively on her daughter's shoulder. Even in sleep, Tom hadn't slept much. His mind was too full. Who were they really? Could he trust them? What if someone followed them? What if the military came looking? But then he'd remember how they looked, frozen, weak, and frightened when he found them. No one fakes that. Fire crackled softly. He added more wood and turned just as Nira began to stir. Her eyes opened slowly. For a moment, she seemed confused, unsure of where she was. Then she saw Tom and sat up quickly, clutching the blanket. "You're safe," Tom said calmly. "No one's coming. It's still snowing outside." She looked at the window, then at her daughter. Relief filled her face when she saw Luma still sleeping peacefully. "Thank you," she said, voice hoarse. Tom nodded. "You're lucky I found you. A few more minutes out there and I know," she said quietly. "I was ready to fall." He poured some tea into a cup and handed it to her. She took it with both hands, warming her fingers first before taking a sip. Her skin was still cold. "Are you really from a ship?" Tom asked after a moment. "Yes," she said. "We came to your world for help, but not many welcomed us." Tom raised an eyebrow. "You speak our language well? Why?" "Learned during the journey," she said. "I was chosen as a guide. I was supposed to speak to humans and explain who we are. But our ship was damaged. We lost power. Crashed far from your cities. The others are gone." Tom was quiet. He didn't know what to say to that. Nira looked down at her cup. Then after a pause, she looked up at him, eyes serious. "I want to ask you something," she said softly. Tom nodded, curious. "In my world," she began, "when someone needs shelter and they cannot pay with money or trade, they offer something else. Warmth. Safety in return for comfort. It is not forced. It is not shameful. It is simply survival." Tom frowned. "What are you trying to say?" "I want to offer you warmth," she said, carefully. "To sleep near you, not for anything more. Just to share heat, to show you that we are not enemies. We can give something back, even if small." Tom looked at her for a long moment. He understood what she was trying to do. It wasn't about love or anything romantic. It was about showing trust. She didn't want to be a burden. She wanted to show that she could give something in return. But to him, it felt strange. "You don't have to do that," he said finally. "I didn't help you for a reward. You're here because you needed help. That's enough for me." Nira looked surprised. Then slowly she nodded. "You are different. Most people want something. I just want quiet," Tom said, "and maybe some peace." A small smile appeared on Nira's face. It was the first real smile he had seen from her. "You have a kind heart," she said. Tom shrugged. "Kind or not, you can stay until the storm ends. Then we'll figure something out." Luma yawned and opened her eyes. She sat up and rubbed her face sleepily. When she saw Tom, she didn't hide like before. Instead, she gave a tiny wave. Tom waved back. Morning. Nira helped her daughter to sit up. "This is Tom," she said gently. "He helped us. Remember what we say when someone helps?" Luma nodded. "Thank you, Tom." Tom gave a small smile. "You're welcome." Made breakfast, simple food, boiled oats, dried berries, and tea. Luma ate quietly but quickly. Nira, too, finished her bowl and sat silently, warming her hands by the fire. After the meal, Tom brought out a box from a shelf. It was filled with old clothes and gear he hadn't used in years. found a thick sweater and a wool scarf, and handed them to Nira. "These might fit you," he said. "Better than what you're wearing." She took them gently, looking surprised. "Thank you, again." Tom didn't answer. He just stood and walked to the door. The snow outside had slowed, but the cold was still strong. He stepped out to check the surroundings. The sky was gray, but clear patches were starting to form. Maybe tomorrow they could go out. Maybe he could help her find whatever was left. Of her ship, he returned to the cabin to find Nira and Luma sitting together, drawing shapes in the frost on the window. They looked peaceful, like any mother and child might, and in that quiet moment, Tom felt something shift. He had lived alone for so long, he had forgotten what it felt like to share his space, to hear someone else's voice, to have another heartbeat. In the room, they were strangers. Yes, but maybe, just maybe, they had come into his life for a reason. That night, as the fire burned low and the cold knocked at the door, Tom added one more log and glanced at the small bed where the child slept and the chair where Nira rested. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight he was no longer alone, and that somehow felt right. The snow had stopped falling by morning, the wind had quieted, and the world outside looked calm, white, and still. It was the kind of silence that made everything feel safe, but Tom knew better. He had seen too much in his life to believe in silence. Inside the cabin, the fire burned gently. Nira stood near the small stove, watching the boiling pot. Luma sat by the window, drawing again in the frost with her finger. Tom sat at the table, sipping tea, thinking. For 3 days, they had stayed in his cabin. Nira helped with cooking and cleaning. Luma behaved well and kept to herself. Everything felt peaceful, almost normal, but something didn't sit right in Tom's mind. He had questions. Questions he hadn't asked yet. Where exactly did Nira come from? Why did she walk through a snowstorm instead of calling for help? Was she alone? Tom wasn't a man who liked digging into the past. He respected privacy. But the more time he spent with Nira and her daughter, the more he needed answers. Not because he didn't trust her, but because he wanted to. That morning, after breakfast, Tom finally spoke. "Nira," he said, "I have something to ask you." She turned from the stove and nodded. "Yes." "You said your ship crashed far from here? But you also said you walked for days. Why here? This place isn't on any map. How did you even find it?" Nira was quiet. She looked down, thinking. After a moment, she spoke softly. "There was a signal." Tom's eyes narrowed. "What kind of signal?" "My people sent beacons before the crash. We were searching for places where humans might help, places far from big cities, away from attention. The signal from this area was weak, but steady. I thought maybe someone kind lived here." Tom leaned back. "I never sent any signal, I know," Nira said. "It wasn't from you. It came from under the ground, near here, a beacon, very old. We followed it, but when we got close, our tracker stopped. Something blocked the signal. We crashed far north. I carried Luma and walked. This cabin we found by chance." Tom frowned. "You said others were with you." She nodded. "Yes, 4 of us survived the crash, but the others were hurt badly. 1 died in the cold. 2 were taken. Tom's voice was sharp now. Nira's hands shook. She placed the spoon down and sat on the bench. "Humans found us, not like you. They wore black suits. Their ship came quiet in the snow. They didn't speak. They scanned us. Then they grabbed the others. I ran with Luma. We hid." Tom's stomach turned. He had heard stories, whispers about secret groups that hunted aliens, even peaceful ones. Some said they were mercenaries. Some said worse. "I don't know who they were," Nira said, voice low, "but I knew we had to escape." When we found the signal again and walked here, Tom stood up. His cabin was small, but he had storage below. He opened the trapdoor in the corner and climbed down the ladder into the old basement. Nira followed him carefully, holding a lantern. The basement smelled of wood and dust. Shelves were lined with old tools and crates. But in the far wall, hidden behind some broken planks, Tom pulled out something strange. It looked like a metal box, dull gray, with thin wires sticking out. There was a faint blue light blinking on its side. "This was here when I bought the land," Tom said. "I never figured out what it was. It didn't do anything, just blinked." Nira stepped forward slowly. Her eyes widened. "This is it, the beacon." Tom looked at her. "You're saying this thing was calling your people?" "Yes," she whispered. "It's very old. Maybe from before your time. It's maybe from a visitor who came long ago." Tom shook his head slowly. "Why would it be buried here?" Nira looked at him carefully. "Maybe someone left it for a reason. Be your kind and mine. I've met before." That thought hit Tom hard. He had always believed humans were the only ones here, that aliens came later in ships from the stars. But what if that wasn't true? What if someone had come long ago and left this behind? Nira touched the beacon gently. Her hand glowed faintly. The light on the box grew stronger for a moment, then faded. "It's damaged," she said, "but still sending a weak signal." Tom stood silently. The air in the basement felt heavier now. "Is this why they were taken?" he asked. "Of this, I don't know," Nira replied. "But whoever took them, they didn't want peace." Tom closed the trapdoor after they climbed back up. He sat by the fire, deep in thought. Luma climbed into her mother's lap, sensing the mood had changed. Tom looked at them, a mother and child, far from home, chased, hiding, afraid, and suddenly, his quiet life felt very small. "They might come looking," Tom said quietly. "Whoever took your people, they might want the beacon, or you." "I know," Nira replied. "You need a place to stay. You also need protection." Nira nodded. "I don't want to bring danger to you." Tom shook his head. "You didn't bring it. It was already here. You just helped me see it." Outside, the snow had stopped, but the sky was still cold and gray. Birds sat on the branches, watching the world below. Inside, Tom stood and grabbed an old map from the shelf. He spread it on the table, pointing at several spots marked with red ink. "These are old bunkers," he said. "Places we used during border patrol years ago. Maybe we can hide the beacon somewhere safer. Maybe we can find out who's watching." Nira watched him carefully. "You're not afraid?" Tom looked at her. "I've seen fear. This is something else. This is a choice." That night, as they sat by the fire, no one spoke much. But something had changed. The cabin was no longer just a shelter. It had become the first wall of defense in a fight that hadn't fully begun. The next day began with heavy clouds. The snow had stopped falling, but the cold had not left. Outside, the trees stood silent and still, their branches like frozen arms reaching toward the gray sky. Inside the cabin, Tom checked the old radio on his shelf. He turned the knob slowly, listening to the soft crackle and static. Once this radio had helped him hear messages from far away. Now it was mostly quiet, but today something changed. A strange clicking sound came through the speaker. It repeated in a steady rhythm like a signal. Tom leaned in, frowning. Nira looked up from the table. She had been fixing Luma's small shoes using thread and a bent needle. Her hands paused when she heard the noise. "That's not a weather report," Tom said. Nira stood slowly and walked over. She listened, her face growing tense. "It's a scan," she whispered. "They're looking." Tom turned off the radio. "They're near. Close enough to send signals," she said. "They may not know our exact spot yet, but they're sweeping the area." Tom moved quickly, grabbed the beacon from the storage box and wrapped it in cloth. "We need to move this." "Where?" Nira asked. "There's a cave 2 hours from here," Tom said. "Hidden behind the rocks. I used it before. No one finds it easily. We'll hide the beacon there." Nira nodded. "What about us? You'll stay here with Luma, keep the fire going. If something happens, take the back trail and head south. Follow the red markers on the trees." "I can help," Nira said. Stepping forward, Tom shook his head. "You've done enough. Let me handle this part." For a moment, Nira looked like she wanted to argue, but then she stepped back. Be careful. Tom packed quickly, placed the wrapped beacon into his old backpack, and put on his thick coat. He checked his knife, strapped his boots, and took one last look at the cabin. Luma waved to him shyly. Tom gave her a little smile. I'll be back before sunset. And with that, he stepped out into the cold. The forest was quiet. Tom moved fast, his boots crunching on the hard snow. He followed a path only he knew, marked with broken twigs and small stones. His breath steamed in the cold air, and the wind bit at his face. But he didn't stop. His thoughts raced as he walked. Who were they? The ones Nira feared? The ones who took her friends? He didn't know. But he was sure of one thing now: they were real, and they were close. By midday, he reached the cave. It was hidden behind a curtain of thick, dark trees, and covered by heavy rocks. Most would walk past without ever seeing it. Tom slipped inside and moved through the narrow tunnel. At the back of the cave was a hollow space, dry and safe. He placed the beacon inside a crevice, covered it with stones, and marked the wall with a chalk symbol, an old sign from his patrol days. Then he turned to leave. That's when he heard, "I tum," low, deep. Strange Tom crouched near the entrance and peered through the trees. A dark shape floated silently above the snow. A black drone, round and smooth, with blinking red lights. It moved slowly, scanning the ground with a soft blue beam. Tom's heart pounded. The drone hovered, turning. It paused in the air, almost as if it smelled something. Then it flew toward the south, toward the cabin. "No," Tom whispered. He stepped out quickly, staying low, and began moving through the trees. He couldn't let it find Nira or Luma. Back at the cabin, Nira was reading a picture book to Luma. It was an old one Tom had found, full of drawings of animals and trees. But she stopped suddenly. The fire gave a strange flicker. Luma looked. "Up, Mama." Nira stood and walked to the window. Her eyes scanned the sky. Then she saw it, the black drone hovering in the distance. Too close. She grabbed Luma and pulled her to the back door. She had seen the trail Tom marked, small red cloth pieces tied to tree branches. It was their escape path. But before she could open the door, she heard a thump. The drone had landed. Metal legs unfolded from its sides. It crawled toward the cabin slowly, like a spider. With red lights flashing across its surface, Nira's breath caught. She had no weapon, no protection. Only her body between it and her child. She looked at Luma. "Hide under the bed," she whispered. Luma obeyed without question. Then Nira turned and opened the door wide. Stepping outside, the drone stopped moving. Nira raised her hand slowly. "I don't want trouble," the drone beeped. A thin laser beam scanned her face, her arms, her chest. Then a cold, mechanical voice echoed. "Subject found. Confirm identity." "Nira of the Fifth Light." Nira's voice shook. "I am Nira. Mean no harm. Please let the child go. Beacon status: missing. Ship status: destroyed. Order: detain." "No," she said, stepping back. "I won't go." The drone raised a small arm. A net launcher slid out. Just then, a stone flew through the air fast and sharp and smashed into the drone's eye sensor. Sparks flew. Tom charged from the trees, yelling, "Get down!" Nira dropped to the ground as Tom pulled out a flare gun from his belt. He aimed and fired. The red flare hit the drone's body, burning hot. The machine screamed in static and fell, over smoke pouring from its joints. Tom rushed over and stomped on it, crushing the rest of its body with his boot. Then everything went quiet. Nira looked up at him, breathing hard. "You came back," she said. "Of course I did," Tom said, helping her up. "Are you hurt?" "No. Luma's safe too." Tom nodded, then stared at the smoking drone. "They're not just scanning anymore. They're hunting." "What do we do now?" Nira asked. Tom looked at the dark clouds above. He'd once wanted only peace and quiet, but now he knew there was no going back. "We stop running," he said. "We fight." After the drone attack, the cabin was no longer a safe home. Smoke still curled up from the broken pieces of the machine, and it shattered. Parts lay scattered across the snow. Tom knew it wasn't over. That drone was just one scout. More would come. Tom worked fast. He dragged the pieces inside and covered the windows. He didn't want any lights to be seen from the outside. The forest had become too quiet again, like something was watching. Nira sat on the floor near the fire, holding Luma close. The little girl was scared but quiet, her big eyes watching the door. Tom placed the drone's remains on the table and started taking it apart. "We don't have much time," he said. "Will they send more?" Nira asked, voice low. "They already have," Tom replied. "We need to know what this one saw before it died. Maybe I can pull something from its memory core." He opened a metal plate on the drone's back and found a small square chip. It was black with glowing lines across it. Tom gently removed it with a tool and inserted it into a small reader. The screen flickered. Strange symbols and numbers appeared. Tom frowned. "Can you read this?" Nira stood and leaned over the screen. "Yes, it's a log. From the moment it launched. Look," she pointed at the symbols. "They know we're here. They scanned the beacon signal yesterday. They don't know its exact location, but they're getting closer. They're moving in from the east. For more drones and a small ship." Tom leaned back, thinking fast. "Then we can't stay here," he said. "We have to move before night." "Where?" "There's an old station deeper in the forest," Tom explained. "Underground. It was used during Border Patrol missions. Has power, food, and radio tools. It's hidden and secure." "Can we make it before dark?" Nira asked. "If we hurry, yes." Tom turned to Luma. "We're going on a little adventure. You ready, kid?" Luma gave a shy nod, holding her mother's hand tightly. Tom packed fast, dry food, tools, first aid, and the beacon. He wrapped the memory chip too, just in case they needed it later. Outside, the cold was sharper than before. The wind howled through the trees like a warning. They moved quickly. Tom led the way with his rifle slung over his shoulder. Nira walked behind him, carrying Luma in a cloth wrap against her chest. The snow made every step harder, but they didn't. Stop. Tom knew the land better than anyone. He'd mapped it in his mind over years of walking alone. Station was 2 valleys away, past a frozen river hidden under rocks as they walked. Tom kept checking behind them. At one point, he saw something in the sky, a blinking red light far off, moving slowly. "We're being followed," he said. "Faster." They reached the frozen river by late afternoon. The sun was low, throwing long shadows over the land. Ice stretched across the water, thick and cracked in places. Tom walked across first, testing each step. The ice groaned under his weight but held. "Careful," he told Nira. She followed slowly, holding Luma close. When they reached the middle, a loud cracking sound echoed. Tom froze. "Don't move." The ice shifted. A long line split the surface near Nira's feet. "Stay calm." "One step at a time," Tom said. Suddenly Luma gasped and pointed. "Look," she cried. In the sky above, a black ship hovered into view. It was sleek, quiet, and deadly. A drone dropped from its belly and flew toward them. "No time," Tom yelled. "Run." They dashed across the ice. The drone fired a beam. It hit the edge of the river behind them, exploding snow and water into the air. Tom reached the other side and turned, firing his flare gun again. The bright red light struck the drone, and it swerved. Losing balance, Nick and Luma jumped onto the bank as the ice behind them cracked and sank. Tom grabbed them both and pulled them behind a hill. The drone rose again, damaged but still searching. "We're almost there," Tom said. "One more climb." The last part of the journey was the hardest, up a steep hill covered in ice and thorns. Tom led them carefully, cutting branches with his knife, helping Nira and Luma climb. At the top, hidden under old leaves and rocks, was a steel door. With a rusted handle, Tom pressed a code into a small keypad. The light blinked green, and the door opened with a creak. They slipped inside. The door shut behind them. Darkness, then light. Faint yellow lamps flickered on. The underground station was small but safe. Dust floated in the air, and metal walls hummed faintly. Tom checked the control room. Everything still worked. The backup generator, the water system, and the old radio set. "We made it," he said, finally letting out a breath. Nira sat on the bench, holding Luma close. "I didn't think we would." "Smile. Now let's make this place useful." Hours passed. Outside, the enemy ship searched the woods, unaware of the hidden station. Inside, Tom and Nira worked together. Tom connected the beacon to the radio system. "If I boost the signal, maybe your people can hear us." Nira nodded. "I can help." She placed her hand over the beacon. It glowed softly, reacting to her touch. Strange symbols lit up on the screen. Tom flipped switches and adjusted knobs. The station filled with a humming sound. Then a soft voice crackled through the speaker. It was not human. Nira leaned in. Her eyes widened. "It's one of ours," she whispered. A reply. Tom listened. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling in Nira's eyes. "Hope they heard us." "Yes." She said, "They're coming." For the first time in days, Tom sat down and let himself relax. Luma curled up on a bunk. Already asleep. Nira looked at Tom and spoke quietly. "You could have left us behind. You didn't have to do all this." Tom shook his head. "I don't leave good people behind, especially not ones trying to protect their child." She smiled softly. "You're more than kind, Tom. You're brave." He looked away, a bit shy. "I just want to do the right thing." Outside, the enemy ship still searched the woods, but underground. In the warmth of the hidden station, a small team of 3, a soldier, a mother, and a child waited for something better to come. And now someone out there was listening. Inside the underground station, the air was dry and warm. The soft humming from the machines echoed in the silence. Tom checked the system again. The signal was still running. Nira had helped him strengthen it. And now it reached farm, maybe even across stars. Luma slept on a small bed, her arms wrapped around a worn blanket Tom had given her. The child was quiet but peaceful. Her breathing was soft and steady. Tom sat near the door, holding his old rifle. His eyes were heavy, but he didn't want to sleep. He glanced at Nira, who sat across from him. She was staring at a small glowing device in her hand, her people's communicator. Every now and then it blinked softly, showing a signal was still. "Alive? No reply yet?" Tom asked. "Not since the last one," Nira said, but the message was clear. "Someone heard us. They're trying to reach us." Tom nodded. "Let's hope they come before the hunters do." Nira looked up, her expression darkening. "You don't understand these hunters, Tom. They are not like you. They don't care who's innocent or weak. They only care about power." Then, "We fight smart," Tom replied. "We're not running again." Later that night, the warning system beeped. Tom rushed to the screen. Motion. 2 clicks northeast. Something's moving. He pulled up the camera feed. A red dot appeared near the frozen river. It was moving slowly, but steadily toward them. "They've found our trail," Tom said. "Just one for now. Maybe a scout." Nira stood beside him. "Let me see." She watched the screen closely, then spoke in a quiet, serious tone. "It's not a drone. It's a tracker. What's the difference?" "Drones scan. Trackers smell," she explained. "They move like animals. Fast, quiet, and deadly." Tom's grip tightened on his rifle. "Is there more than one?" "There's one more we'll follow." They prepared quickly. Tom reinforced the door and set up traps along the tunnel. He used wires, flares, and small explosives from his old patrol kit. Nira helped silently, knew how to build simple sensor triggers and place warning lights. She was more than just a refugee. She had once been trained to survive. "We'll keep Luma in the safe room," Tom said, sealed from the inside. Nira looked at her sleeping daughter. Her face softened. "She's all I have, Tom. I ran with her when everyone else fell. I can't lose her." Tom placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You won't." The first sound came around midnight, a scraping noise. metal on stone. Then silence. Tom turned off the lights. Darkness filled the station. He held his rifle close and watched the screen. The camera feed showed a blurry shape moving outside the entrance. It crawled on 4 limbs, thin and tall, with a head that turned slowly from side to side. Then it stood upright. Its skin was gray and stretched, its arms long, and its eyes glowed like burning coals. It sniffed the air and moved closer to the hidden door. "Tracker," Nira whispered. Tom activated the outer defense flare. A bright light burst from the trees, blinding the creature. The kit hissed loudly and stumbled backward. Then it shrieked. The sound was sharp and wild like a call. "They've been alerted," Tom said. "More will come." He looked at Nira. "Take Luma to the safe room now. What about you?" "I'll hold them back. I've done it before. I won't leave." "You alone," Nira said firmly. Tom opened his mouth to argue, but the look in her eyes stopped him. She was scared but not weak. "Then we fight together," he said. Minutes passed. Then the second wave came. 4 shadows moved in the dark. The outer cameras picked them up, but they were fast. One leaped across the ground and slammed into the outer door. A loud clang rang through the tunnel. Tom fired a warning shot. The blast echoed, shaking the walls. One of the creatures hissed and crawled away, but 2 others stayed. "They're testing us," Nira said. Tom checked the traps. "Let them." One of the trackers stepped on a hidden wire. A loud bang filled the tunnel as fire exploded beneath. The creature screamed and fell, its body twisting. The others rushed in anger. Tom fired again. Nira pulled a second flare and launched it into the tunnel, lighting up everything. The creature screamed, not from pain, but from rage. Her glowing eyes stared at Tom and Nira like predators. "They won't stop," Nira shouted. "They'll keep coming until we fall. And we make sure we don't," Tom replied. Suddenly a loud noise came from the radio, a voice not human but calm, gentle and full of power. Nira froze. She turned to the radio, her eyes wide. "It's them. My people, they've arrived." Tom ran to the controls. "Where?" The voice answered through Nira's communicator. The words were in her language, but she translated fast. "They're above the clouds. They can't land because of the enemy ship nearby. They need us to send a beacon pulse so they can pinpoint our exact location." Tom looked outside. "We need to get back to the beacon. It's outside. Buried in the cave, we'll lead the creatures away," Tom said. "Then double back. You send the signal, they'll do the rest." Nira looked unsure. "And if we don't make it?" "Back." Tom smiled faintly. "Then at least Luma will be safe." She hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. Tom and Nira left through a side tunnel. The forest was still dark, the sky heavy with clouds. Behind them, the creatures followed. They had smelled their prey and wouldn't stop. Tom led the way through the woods, flares in hand. He threw one far across the snow, and the creatures chased the light. Confused by the fire, Nira moved quickly toward the cave. They split at the frozen stream. Tom kept running, drawing the hunters with him. Nira reached the cave and slipped inside. Her hand shook, but she pulled out the beacon and activated the signal. A blue light shot into the sky. High above, ship answered. Moments later, a blast of white light filled the forest. A beam of energy struck down from the clouds. Driving the trackers back, Tom fell to his knees, exhausted. Then he saw it. A great ship. Silver and smooth, lowering silently through the clouds. They had come. Inside the station, Luma looked up as the ground shook. Then she smiled. "Are they here, Mama?" Yes, Nira whispered, holding her close. "They're finally here." Snow fell gently from the sky as the large silver ship landed in the clearing above the forest. The trees bent slightly from the soft wind the ship created. Its surface glowed with gentle light, not harsh or cold, but warm like the sun after a long winter. Tom stood beside a tree, panting from the run, his clothes wet with snow and dirt. His rifle hung across his back, but he didn't need it anymore. From The ship's open ramp, tall figures stepped out. They wore white suits with shining panels on their arms and shoulders. Their faces were calm, their eyes kind. One of them walked toward Tom and raised a hand slowly. Nira arrived a moment later, holding Luma in her arms. The leader of the newcomers stopped in front of them and looked at Nira. "You survived," he said in her native language. Nira smiled. "Tired, but strong. We did. Because of him." The alien leader turned his eyes to Tom. They were strange eyes, clear, like glass but filled with understanding. "You are human," he said, speaking slowly in broken English, "but not like others." Tom gave a small nod, just someone who wanted to help. Inside the underground station, 2 more crew members helped scan the area. They collected the broken beacon and the destroyed tracker parts. One of them placed a device near the entrance, and a soft pulse swept across the station. "Enemy signal has been erased," she said. Another looked at Nira. "We must leave soon. They may return with more." Tom stood beside Nira, watching as her people worked with speed and grace. "I guess this is goodbye," he said quietly. Nira turned to him. "You don't have to say goodbye." Tom raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean you helped us when no one else would? You protected us even when you were afraid. My people will welcome you if you want to come." Tom looked down, unsure. He'd lived his whole life on Earth in silence, in shadows, far from others. Could he really leave it all behind? "Would I belong there?" he asked. Nira stepped closer. "You already do." Luma reached out her small hand to him. "Come with us, Tom. I want you to—" Tom looked at her, those innocent eyes, full of trust, and he smiled. That simple smile held all the warmth he had hidden for years. "All right," he said. "Let's go." The ship rose into the sky, slow and quiet. Below them, the forest grew smaller, the snow-covered hills turning into gentle curves of white and green dot. Tom sat near a wide window, watching Earth fade behind them. They felt strange, a mix of sadness and peace. This planet had been his home, but it had also been his prison. Now he was free. Nira sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his arm. "You'll like our world," she said. "There are forests, lakes, and skies with 2 moons." "Sounds peaceful," Tom replied. Luma sat across from them, munching on a glowing fruit one of the crew had given her. She waved to Tom with a happy grin. The ship moved silently through space. Stars passed by like slow-moving fireflies. Days passed, and Tom learned more about the aliens near his people. They were called the Drayans, travelers of the stars, seekers of peace. Their homeworld was far from Earth, but not unreachable. They had once lived in great cities full of light, but war had changed that. Many Drayans had gone into hiding, scattered across the galaxy. Nira was part of a group that had fled the enemy's first attack, taking only what they could carry and saving those too young to fight. Tom was given clean clothes and a place to rest. The crew treated him with kindness, asking nothing in return. But what touched him most was how Luma never left his side. She held his hand when walking through the ship. She listened to his stories with wide eyes. She even gave him her lucky stone, a tiny blue crystal she had kept hidden in her coat. "You're part of us now," she said once, curling beside him on a soft bench near the ship's garden room. When they reached the Drayan homeworld, Tom stared in wonder. It was a planet of green hills, tall trees with silver leaves, and skies that shifted from gold to violet as the sun set. 2 moons hung in the sky. Just like Nira had said, the ship landed near a small settlement. Built into the cliffs above a quiet sea, people came out to greet them. Not just soldiers, but families, children, elders, and friends. They gathered around, smiling and welcoming Nira and Luma home. One of the elders, a woman with hair like woven silver threads, placed her hand on Tom's shoulder. "You are the first human to come here," she said gently, "and perhaps the most human of all." Tom felt something shift in his heart, something soft and unfamiliar. He looked around at the people, the place, and the sky. For the first time, he didn't feel alone. Months later, Tom built a small home near the sea. It was simple, made of stone and glass, the garden full of starflowers. Nira visited every day, and Luma spent hours helping him plant new things. She loved the earth stories he told about snowy forests, wild bears, and old firewood cabins. Sometimes, at night, the three of them would sit together, watching the sky. Stars shone bright above them, and the soft wind carried the sound of waves. One evening, as they sat together, Nira looked at Tom. "You gave us a chance when we had nothing," she said. "No one else did." Tom looked at her, his voice soft. "You gave me something too, what?" "A reason to hope again." He sat in silence, watching the moon's rise. And though he had come from a broken world, with nothing but his courage and kindness, Tom had found something far greater than survival. He had found a family, he had found a home. The end.